In a shocking moment on the floor of Congress, tensions reached an all-time high as Judge Barrett lashed out at Rep. Jasmine Crockett. It all started when Judge Barrett was questioned about her views on several issues, with many calling into question her past decisions and associations. The tension in the room was palpable, and what happened next would leave the country reeling. Judge Barrett, who had been under intense scrutiny for her controversial rulings, was asked by Crockett about her stance on a recent ruling that many viewed as deeply unfair to communities of color. Instead of providing a clear answer, Judge Barrett fired back with a comment that stunned everyone. "Go back to your hood." The words were sharp, dismissive, and undeniably offensive. The room fell silent for a moment, as both sides of the aisle seemed stunned by the remark. But it was Crockett's response that would send shockwaves across the nation. She didn't flinch, she didn't hesitate. In an instant, she snapped back at Barrett, her voice loud and unwavering. "No, Judge, I'm not going anywhere. I am here to represent my people, my community, and my country. You cannot silence us with your prejudice, your bigotry, or your hate." Crockett fired back. The power in her words reverberated through the chamber. The cameras zoomed in on Judge Barrett's face, her expression one of disbelief. The members of Congress were equally stunned. The tension between the two women had reached a boiling point, and no one in the room could believe what they were witnessing. As Crockett continued, her voice began to rise, fueled by anger and determination. "This is not just about me. This is about every Black woman, every marginalized person who has ever been told they don't belong. I will not go back. I will stand right here, and I will fight for what is right." The room erupted in applause. Members of Congress from both sides stood, clapping and cheering for Crockett. Her words were powerful, her courage undeniable. The camera panned out to show the reactions of the audience, many of whom were visibly moved by what had just transpired. The incident didn't end there. The media quickly picked up on the story, with coverage flooding the airwaves. Social media was ablaze with reactions from both sides of the political spectrum. Supporters of Crockett praised her for standing up against such blatant disrespect, while others condemned Judge Barrett's comment as a display of ignorance and racism. The fallout from the incident was immediate. Calls for Judge Barrett's resignation began circulating, with many questioning how someone with such views could hold a position of power in the legal system. Crockett, on the other hand, saw a surge in support. Her bold stance on the issue resonated with millions of Americans who were tired of seeing people in power undermine their voices. But it wasn't just the public that took notice. Inside the halls of Congress, the incident sparked a deeper conversation about race, power, and respect. Leaders from both parties began to address the issue, some condemning Barrett's words, while others focused on the importance of dialogue and unity in the face of division. In the days that followed, Judge Barrett issued a statement attempting to clarify her remarks, but it did little to quell the outrage. Many saw it as an attempt to backtrack and save face. The damage, however, had been done. The divide between those who stood with Crockett and those who supported Barrett seemed irreparable. As for Rep. Jasmine Crockett, she continued to stand firm, using her newfound platform to speak out on issues of racial injustice, equality, and the need for change. Her response to Barrett's insult had become a symbol of resilience and strength in the face of adversity. The moment would go down in history as one of the most defining and powerful moments in recent political discourse. The nation had witnessed a battle not just between two political figures, but between the ideals of justice, respect, and equality. And as the dust settled, one thing was certain. Judge Barrett's insult had sparked a conversation that would not be easily forgotten. It had exposed the deep-seated divisions in the country, but it had also given rise to a voice of defiance, a voice that would not be silenced. Jasmine Crockett had shown America that no matter the challenge, no matter the insult, standing up for what is right is always the answer. The aftermath of Judge Barrett's comments and Rep. Jasmine Crockett's powerful response reverberated far beyond the walls of Congress. The event became a defining moment in the broader political landscape, bringing to light deep-seated issues of racism, privilege, and power dynamics in the United States. But it also marked the beginning of a new chapter for Rep. Crockett, a chapter in which she would harness her platform for greater social change. In the days following the explosive exchange, the media coverage continued to escalate. News outlets from every corner of the political spectrum jumped into the fray, offering their own takes on what had transpired. Some commentators praised Rep. Crockett for her courage and resilience in the face of such a blatant and offensive attack. They hailed her as a champion for marginalized communities, someone who was willing to confront the ugly truths that so many others were too afraid to address. On the other hand, there were those who tried to downplay the significance of the incident. Some conservative outlets focused on the idea that Judge Barrett's comment had been taken out of context, arguing that it was merely a misguided remark rather than a calculated insult. They tried to redirect the narrative, attempting to shift the focus away from Barrett's behavior and instead place it on Rep. Crockett's response. But the damage was already done. The American public had already made up their minds, and Crockett's message resonated deeply with many. In the midst of the media frenzy, Rep. Crockett continued to rise above the fray, refusing to let the controversy overshadow her mission. She used her newfound national platform to champion the causes she had always fought for: racial equality, justice reform, and the empowerment of marginalized communities. But she also understood the weight of the moment. She knew that her response had not only made waves on Capitol Hill, but had also set off a ripple effect across the country. People were paying attention. The conversation was no longer just about one insult or one political figure. It was about the very fabric of American society and how it treated its most vulnerable citizens. As the public outcry grew, so did the calls for Judge Barrett to be held accountable. Protesters gathered outside the Capitol, demanding that she resign from her post. Social media movements sprang up, with hashtags like #ResignBarrett trending across multiple platforms. Supporters of Rep. Crockett were vocal in their demands for justice, calling for those in power to be held accountable for their actions. The uproar reached a fever pitch when more reports surfaced detailing Judge Barrett's previous controversial statements and rulings, further fueling the fire of public dissent. But despite the overwhelming pressure, Judge Barrett remained steadfast in her position. She released a statement that many saw as an attempt to downplay the severity of her comment. In it, she expressed regret for her choice of words, but stopped short of offering a full apology. "I deeply regret that my comment has been misinterpreted and hurt those who I hold dear," the statement read. "It was never my intention to offend anyone, and I am committed to learning from this experience." To many, the statement felt hollow. It lacked the accountability and sincerity that people were looking for. Critics quickly pointed out that Barrett had failed to address the underlying issues of racial prejudice that had fueled her remarks. They saw her statement as little more than a political move designed to save face, rather than a genuine attempt to engage with the hurt caused by her words. Meanwhile, Rep. Crockett was not content to let the incident fade into the background. She knew that the moment was bigger than just her, and she had no intention of letting Judge Barrett's comment go unchallenged. In the following weeks, she intensified her advocacy efforts, pushing for legislation that would address systemic racial inequality in the criminal justice system and beyond. She rallied her colleagues in Congress, urging them to take a stand against the kinds of remarks and actions that perpetuated the cycles of racism and oppression in America. Her efforts didn't stop there. Crockett began speaking at rallies and town halls across the country, bringing attention to the need for lasting reform. She connected with grassroots organizations and community leaders, working together to create a movement that was as much about healing as it was about justice. Her message was clear. No one, no matter their position or power, was above the call for accountability. One of the key moments in Crockett's ongoing fight came when she introduced a bill aimed at strengthening oversight of judicial appointments. The bill called for greater transparency in the vetting process for judges and other high-level officials, particularly when it came to their past statements, rulings, and behavior. It also sought to implement stronger safeguards against bias, ensuring that all people, regardless of race, gender, or socioeconomic status, would be treated equally under the law. While the bill faced significant opposition from conservative lawmakers, it was a landmark moment for Crockett. She knew that change would not come easily, but she also knew that she had the support of millions of Americans who were tired of the status quo.